Uh, yeah, so I want to speak about. So I had a tenant that just moved out. Wow, this color's. I'm gonna say it's kind of cool. Sorry about the shade. Sorry about the lighting. I'm driving. So tenant just moved out, and they had moved into one of our nicer properties that we manage in a nicer neighborhood, Fittler Square. And they had a lot of resources. The tenants, they were kind of between properties. They did end up staying at our property for a couple of years. And they had made substantial improvements to the property. Each one of these substantial improvements had to go through my company, specifically me, my property management company, and they had to let us know what they wanted to do, and I would approve these repairs. So they did a lot of things like replace carpeting, kind of somewhat significant improvements to my owner's property. All good things, admittedly. Now, fast forward, and they moved out. And what I want to speak about is now it's time for us to assess the move-out charges. What's going on is they're contesting our assessment. So their argument, and I understand it, is hey, yes, we actually left the property in a not great condition, not horrible condition. It's usual. A property needs to be professionally cleaned. It needs touch-up painting. That's beyond normal wear and tear. So, but we made substantial improvements to this property. We left it better than we gave it to you. So my position is we are still going forward with the move-out charges. So again, any charges against the security deposit would be anything that's beyond normal wear and tear. And obviously, since they had been there for several years, they're allowed considerable normal wear and tear. And that's kind of relative to a degree to who's actually doing the assessment. I'm really sorry about the lighting. Basically, to me, that means, nail holes, that's all normal wear and tear. Scuffs at a front door, that's all normal wear and tear. Are the scuffs at my front door on my property? No. Do I think it's acceptable enough that a tenant actually has significant kind of scuffs and maybe a couple dings at the front door? Yes. So when I'm going through and I'm actually looking at a property and doing the move-out inspection, I'm basically kind of going in and just seeing just how, again, just kind of relating what Joe White would see would be acceptable and what wouldn't be acceptable. So putting a significant hole in the wall would not be acceptable. That would be considered significant wear and tear, beyond normal wear and tear. Putting on a TV mount to mount a flat screen TV and causing damage to the wall. Joe White doing the assessment, I would see that as being normal wear and tear. People have TVs. People have flat screen TVs. Flat screen TVs are typically mounted to a wall. And again, it would be to a degree related to who's doing the assessment. To a degree, obviously, ultimately it would go in front of a judge, and you actually want to, be equal or beneath what that judge's assessment is going to be. So back to the original. So from my perspective, we gave these tenants a clean, functional property. Light bulbs were working. The property was clean. It was tenant ready, obviously. We gave them an acceptable property. They returned us a property that actually needed not significant work, but definitely work enough that we had to charge the tenants. Even though they had done significant improvements to the property and had increased this owner's equity, it wasn't the owner's choice to make these improvements. It was the owner's approval through me to make these improvements, but it wasn't the owner's choice. They didn't say, I want to improve my property and in this way, in this manner. And at the end of the day, the owners have to now pay. Well, somebody has to pay. So the decision would be to charge the tenants that caused the damage beyond normal wear and tear to correct the property and get it rent ready. Because it's obviously not rent ready now. I mean, it is now because we actually got people in there to get it ready. But the property wouldn't have been rent ready because it would still have to be cleaned. We would still have to repair walls and other damages that these tenants actually had caused to the property, again, beyond normal wear and tear. So the owners would have had to go into their pocket to pay for these repairs. Even though their property had received significant improvements, it still would not be an expense I would expect the owners to have to face. That they would have to spend, I think it was like around $1,200 and actually fees because the property did need significant cleaning. It did need, wall repairs and things of that nature. So again, I think if you're ever faced as a landlord, as a rental property owner, and you're assessing a tenant's, move-out charges, I mean, if you feel comfortable eating some of those expenses because the tenant actually was a great tenant and the tenant somehow improved the property or helped you out with a lot of other tenants or whatever it would be, that's your personal decision. Absolutely make it. I'm not going to argue against that. But I would also have you consider that it's fine if you actually still charge the tenant security deposits. Again, these were not improvements you actually wanted the tenant to make. If the tenant wanted to put a screen door on a property, for example, when there wasn't one, I mean, you might say that's fine, that's allowable, and actually that actually even is great for me because I wouldn't mind having my property with a screen door, but that's not a decision you made. It was not an investment that you had actually decided you wanted to make. So I would, and I did, go ahead and charge tenants for the security deposit, charges, the appropriate security deposit charges. Again, anything that was above normal wear and tear. And when we're doing that too, we always lean definitely in favor of the tenants. Always, I would recommend you do the same. I mean, it's not always likely that you're going to end up in a courtroom, but every time we do a move-out inspection, that will always be in the back of my mind. So we're always basically going to lean in slight favor of the tenant when we're actually kind of doing this. And it kind of works out both ways. This is way off topic, but basically works both ways to where we have to charge the tenant to repair a wall. Say they put a 3-inch by 3-inch hole in my owner's wall, property that I'm responsible for, wall, and I have to get that repaired. Well, if they put 2 of these holes in a wall, so they put a 3-inch by 3-inch hole in the wall, far beyond normal wear and tear. We have to get a contractor in there at the tenant's expense to make that repair. Now that the contractor stepped his foot in the door, any work after that is going to be reduced because it's expensive to get them in the door. Once they're there, it's not going to be that much more expensive. So the tenants put a 3-inch by 3-inch hole in your wall, and then there's a bunch of other little normal wear and tear pinholes, nail holes throughout the property. That means nothing to the contractor. He opened up the can of mud, he had to stir it up, he had to get some air bubbles out of it, he had to go ahead and fix that 3-inch by 3-inch hole. For him to actually reach over here and do this nail hole and to do that nail hole, that's merely a matter of seconds. So it tends to work in the owner's favor, and so we always also tend to kind of assess it in the tenant's favor, and it naturally kind of becomes in the owner's favor. I don't know if I'm actually making any sense. I brought up like about 10 points on this. But anyways, I'm just a humble property management company owner doing my best to answer your rental property investing questions. And as always, happy rental property investing.